All right, today we're going to dive into the core ideas from the book Team of Teams. We're going to look at why the old rules for how you lead, how you win, they just don't work anymore in this crazy, fast-paced world. And more importantly, we're going to figure out what it actually takes to build an organization that can adapt and come out on top. Let's get right into it.
To really get what we're up against, let's go way back to an old Greek myth. See, this hero, Menelaus, he had to capture the sea god Proteus to find his way home. The catch? Proteus was a shapeshifter. He was constantly changing, becoming a lion, then a snake, then a flood of water. So the only way to win wasn't to be stronger, but to be more adaptable, to change right along with him. And you know what? That's the perfect way to think about the world we're all living in today.
So yeah, we're in this shape-shifting world where all the old maps, all the old playbooks, they're basically useless. The challenges we're facing, whether it's in business or technology, they're just not predictable anymore. And to even begin to navigate this new world, we first have to understand a really important difference.
Okay, this slide is really important. For centuries, we've gotten really good at managing complicated things. Think about a jet engine. It's got a ton of parts, but it works in a predictable way. There's a blueprint. But a complex system, like a rainforest, that is a whole different beast. It's not about the parts, it's about the countless, unpredictable connections between the parts. You can't just take a rainforest apart and put it back together again.
And this is where it gets wild. In 2010, there was this fruit vendor in Tunisia, Tarek Bouad Sisi. He was so frustrated with the local authorities that he set himself on fire. Now, in a simple, complicated world, that's a local tragedy. But in our complex, connected world, videos of the protest hit YouTube, hit Facebook, and that one single act of desperation, it ignited the Arab Spring and toppled governments thousands of miles away. That, right there, is the unpredictable power of complexity.
So what happens when we try to use our old, efficient, predictable models to deal with these new, complex challenges? Well, they break, they shatter, and the cost of that failure can be absolutely enormous.
Just look at the U.S. Olympic basketball dream team. Back in the 90s, they were untouchable, right? A collection of the absolute best individual players on the planet. But fast forward to 2004, and the rest of the world had caught up. Other countries were playing not as a collection of stars, but as these incredibly synergistic, adaptable teams. And the U.S. team, still acting like a command of superstars, got humiliated. They were a perfect collection of parts that just couldn't work as an adaptable whole.
Or how about this story? After this terrible flood back in 1953, the Netherlands built this thing called the Delta Works, an unbelievable massive system of dams to protect them from the sea. A true masterpiece of engineering. But then in the 1990s, the country flooded again. Not from the sea, though. It flooded from behind, from swollen rivers. They had built the absolute perfect defense for yesterday's threat, totally forgetting that in a complex world, the danger can come from literally anywhere.
So let's just boil it all down. The old ways of doing things fail for a few key reasons. They were built for efficiency, not for adaptability. They depend on being able to predict and plan in a world that is fundamentally unpredictable. And maybe worst of all, they create these rigid silos that choke off the flow of information right when you need it most.
And this brings us right to the heart of the book, to the solution it proposes, the team of teams. This isn't just about making individual teams better. It's about tearing down the old structure and building something completely new for this new reality.
Okay, look at the left. That's the traditional model, a command of teams. You might have awesome individual teams, but they're stuck in their little boxes. Information has to crawl up and down the chain of command. It's just too slow. Now look at the right. That's a team of teams. It's not a pyramid, it's a network. It's designed for information to flow everywhere instantly. It gives you the agility of a small team, but at a massive, massive scale.
So how in the world do you actually build a team of teams? Well, that all rests on two big pillars. Let's tackle the first one, which is arguably the most important of all, creating something the authors call shared consciousness. Shared consciousness is all about blowing up the silos and pushing information and context out to absolutely everyone. It's about radical transparency. The goal is to give every single person the big picture view that usually only a senior leader has. See, it's not just about telling people what to do, it's about making sure everyone understands the why, so they can make smart, fast decisions on their own. NASA actually gave us a fantastic example of this. Back in the space race, their rockets kept failing. And it wasn't because the parts were bad, it was because the teams building those parts weren't talking to each other. They called them interface failures. So what did they do? They built this huge system of over 250 radio channels that let any team listen in on any other team. The result? Instantaneous transmission of knowledge. Suddenly, everyone had the same big picture.
Okay, once you've built that foundation of shared consciousness, once everyone's on the same page, then, and only then, can you unlock the second pillar. And this one is all about trusting your team to act. It's called empowered execution.
Empowered execution basically means decentralizing authority. It means trusting the people on the front lines, the ones who now have all that context from shared consciousness, to make the call, to take action, without needing to ask for permission up the chain of command. This is what creates incredible speed and agility. When everyone knows the why, you can trust them with the what.
And if you want to know the cost of not empowering your people, just look at this number, $180 million. That's how much United Airlines stock value dropped after baggage handlers broke a musician's guitar. He spent 9 months trapped in a bureaucratic nightmare where not a single employee felt they had the power to just solve the problem. So he made a YouTube video, it went viral, and bam!
And this comparison just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you have United. Rigid scripts, no authority, a 9-month disaster. Now contrast that with what Best Buy did with their 12 Force. They empowered thousands of their employees to just jump on Twitter and solve customer problems directly. They were solving issues in hours, not months, and turning angry customers into huge fans. That's what empowered execution looks like in the real world.
So, if your teams are all networked together, and they're all empowered to act on their own, what's left for the leader to do? Well, it means their job has to fundamentally change. The old model of the heroic, all-knowing boss, it's not just old-fashioned anymore. It's actually a liability.
And the book gives us this really powerful metaphor to think about it. The old leader, they were a chess master, meticulously controlling every single piece on a predictable board. The new leader is a gardener. They don't move the individual plants around. Their job is to create the environment, the soil, the sunlight, the water, the entire ecosystem where those plants can thrive on their own.
You see, a gardener's job isn't to command, it's to cultivate. And for a leader, that means their focus has to shift completely away from directing individual tasks. Instead, their entire job becomes about constantly nurturing those two pillars we talked about, building shared consciousness and fostering empowered execution. Their responsibility is to the health of the whole system, the whole garden.
So we'll end with this really provocative question from the book. Imagine this. If success was the only way you could clock out, not just putting in the hours, not just following the plan, but actually winning, what would you do differently? How would you change the way your team or your organization actually works? It's a question that really forces us to think less like we're managing a machine and more like we're part of a living, breathing, adaptive team.